I'm not mistaken, the Beauxbatons delegation has arrived. Where? Many students asked eagerly, looking around. There, a sixth year shouted, pointing above the forbidden forest. Against the deep blue sky, a massive object rushed toward the castle, growing larger by the second. As it passed just above the forest canopy and caught the castle window lights, everyone saw it clearly. A huge sky blue carriage, as large as a house, drawn by 12 winged horses. The carriage swooped lower, descending at incredible speed. With a loud thud, it landed smoothly. The 12 silver-maned horses, each the size of an elephant, stomped heavily, their hooves as large as serving trays, tossing their massive heads, fiery eyes darting around. A boy in a pale blue robe leapt from the carriage, bent down, and fiddled with something on the floor before opening a golden spiral staircase. He respectfully jumped back. Derek saw a gleaming black high-heeled shoe extend from the carriage, already the size of a child's sleigh, followed by a woman of enormous stature. "Is that Hagrid's sister?" Justin gasped. As she stepped into the light spilling from the entrance hall, everyone noticed her elegant olive-toned face, large, dark, glistening eyes, and sharply defined nose. Her hair was pulled back into a shiny bun at the nape of her neck. She was wrapped head to toe in a black satin gown, adorned with lavish opals around her neck and on her thick fingers. Dumbledore began to applaud. The students joined in, many standing on tiptoe to see her more clearly. Her face softened into a graceful smile, and she extended a sparkling hand toward Dumbledore. Though he was tall, he barely bent to kiss it. "Dear Madame Maxim," he said, "welcome to Hogwarts." "Dumbledore," Madame Maxim said in a deep voice, "I hope all is well with you." "Very well, thank you," Dumbledore replied. "My students," Madame Maxim said, casually waving one enormous hand behind her. About a dozen or so young men and women stepped down from the carriage behind her. Judging by their appearance, they were roughly 18 or 19, and each seemed slightly trembling. This was hardly surprising. Their robes appeared to be made of fine silk, and none wore cloaks. A few had scarves or head wraps covering their heads. They all looked up at Hogwarts with expressions of awe. "Has Karkaroff arrived?" Madame Maxim asked. "He'll be here any moment," Dumbledore said. "Would you like to wait here to greet him, or would you prefer to go inside and warm up first?" "Let's warm up first," Madame Maxim said. "But what about the horses?" "Our Care of Magical Creatures professor will be happy to tend to them," Dumbledore said. "He's just dealing with a small situation at the moment. Well, some other matters that require his attention. My horses need, well, very strong people to handle them," Madame Maxim said, seemingly doubting whether Hogwarts' Care of Magical Creatures professor could manage. "They have quite spirited temperaments. I assure you, Hagrid is more than capable," Dumbledore said with a smile. "Very well," Madame Maxim said with a slight bow. "Could you inform this Hagrid that these horses require, pure malt strength?" "I will see to it," Dumbledore said, bowing in return. "Come along," Madame Maxim commanded her students with authority. The Hogwarts crowd quickly cleared a path, allowing her and her students to ascend the stone steps. "I think I know what trouble Hagrid's in," Justin whispered. "Those blast-ended Scroots probably don't realize what an important day this is." "Have you noticed?" Ernie's eyes followed the Beauxbatons delegation until they disappeared inside. "All the Beauxbatons girls are quite beautiful." They continued standing there, waiting for the Durmstrang delegation to arrive. Though the air was growing colder, everyone's excitement had been stirred, and they craned their necks to watch the sky. Silence fell over the grounds, broken only by the snorting and hoofbeats of Madame Maxim's enormous horses. Then, a strange, loud sound drifted from the darkness, a deep, suppressed rumble accompanied by a suction-like noise. "In the lake!" Lee Jordan shouted. "Look at the lake!" From their vantage point on the grassy slope overlooking the grounds, they saw the calm water churn violently. A huge swirl formed at the center, as though a giant cork had been pulled from the lake bed. A dark, long pole-like object slowly rose from the whirlpool. Gradually, a magnificent ship emerged, shimmering in the moonlight. The hull glimmered with dim, misty lights, resembling ghostly eyes. At last, with a loud splash, the ship fully surfaced and began to move across the rippling water. Moments later, a heavy iron anchor was thrown in, and a plank was laid down to the lakeshore. The Durmstrang students followed a figure wearing a silver-white, sleek fur cloak as they disembarked. Dumbledore! The man called enthusiastically as he climbed the slope. My dear old friend, how are you? Wonderful, thank you, Professor Karkaroff, Dumbledore replied. Karkaroff's voice was smooth and rich. Like Dumbledore, he was tall and thin, but his silver-white hair was cropped short and his goatee left his sharp chin exposed. He stepped forward and shook Dumbledore's hands with both of his. My dear old friend Hogwarts, he said, looking up at the castle with a smile that revealed yellow teeth. Though his face smiled, his eyes remained cold and piercing. It's truly wonderful to be here. Victor, come here and warm up. You don't mind, Dumbledore? Victor has caught a bit of a cold. Karkaroff gestured for one of his students to step forward. When the boy passed by, the crowd froze for a moment before erupting into cheers. That's Victor Krum! Chapter 44, The Goblet of Fire. It's really Krum, Ernie exclaimed, practically vibrating with excitement as the Hogwarts students followed the Durmstrang delegation, climbing the stone steps in line. Victor Krum, guys! He's actually a Durmstrang student. He's a wizard too, Ernie, Derek said gently. There's nothing unusual about a wizard attending a magical school. But he's just a few feet away from us. Ernie waved his arms frantically. He flies so amazingly, one of the best seeker in the world, and yet he's still a student. Can you imagine? He's going to dominate the Quidditch pitch in the future. As they passed through the entrance hall and headed toward the Great Hall with the other students, Derek noticed Lee Jordan tiptoeing up and down, trying to catch a better glimpse of Krum's back. A few sixth-year girls were frantically rummaging through their pockets while walking. I can't believe I didn't bring a single quill, one muttered. Do you think he'll sign my hat with lipstick? Another whispered. They're going to be here for the whole term, right? Ernie asked anxiously. That means plenty of chances. I want his autograph on a photo. They made their way to the Hufflepuff table, and Ernie deliberately sat near the doorway, as Krum and his Durmstrang classmates were still lingering near the entrance, unsure of where to sit. The Beauxbaton students had already chosen seats by the Ravenclaw table. Come on over here! Sit here! Ernie whispered a silent prayer. By Merlin, there are so many empty seats! Ah! Victor Krum and his classmates had taken seats at the Slytherin table. They removed their heavy fur cloaks and looked around the hall with keen interest, gazing up at the dark, starlit ceiling. Two of them lifted golden plates and goblets, examining them with evident curiosity. Near the staff table, Caretaker Filch was adding a few extra chairs. For the occasion, he wore his old musty tailcoat. Once all the students were seated at their respective tables, the staff filed into the hall and took their places at the main table. Walking last were Professor Dumbledore, Headmaster Karkaroff, and Madame Maxime. As soon as the Beauxbaton students saw their headmistress, they stood promptly. A few Hogwarts students stifled chuckles. The Beauxbaton delegation, however, showed no embarrassment. Only sitting once Madame Maxime took her place to Dumbledore's left. Dumbledore remained standing as the hall gradually quieted. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, ghosts, and most especially our honored guests, Dumbledore said, smiling warmly at the foreign visitors. It is with great pleasure that I welcome you to Hogwarts. I trust you will find yourselves comfortable and at ease here. At the Ravenclaw table, a Beauxbaton's girl, her head still tightly wrapped in a scarf, let out a clearly mocking laugh that drew the attention of a small group nearby. The tournament will officially begin after the feast, Dumbledore continued. For now, I invite everyone to eat and drink as freely as if you were in your own homes. Their plates were piled high with food as usual. The house elves in the kitchens had undoubtedly put forth their utmost effort. Alongside traditional British fare, there were several exotic foreign dishes. What's that? Justin asked, pointing to a large platter brimming with seafood. French bouillabaisse, Derek replied. Authentic French cuisine. I've had it in a French restaurant before. It's delicious. Ha! I must try that, Justin said, carefully ladling a portion onto his plate. Somehow, the hall felt more crowded than usual. Though there were fewer than 20 extra students, their brightly colored uniforms stood out sharply against Hogwarts' black robes. The Durmstrang students removed their fur cloaks, revealing blood-red robes underneath. Ernie suddenly straightened, staring intently at the Gryffindor table, unaware that sauce from his fork had dripped onto his robe. Justin followed his gaze and felt the same pull. "What is it?" Derek asked, looking up and following their line of sight. The Beauxbatons girl who had laughed during Dumbledore's speech had now removed her scarf and was carrying a plate of food near the Gryffindor table. Her long, waist-length silver hair cascaded like a waterfall. Her eyes were a striking blue, and her teeth were perfectly white and even. As she moved through the hall, many boys turned to watch her, just like Ernie and Justin. "Wow, she's stunning," Ernie whispered, glancing at her while eating. "Hogwarts doesn't have girls like her." "She is beautiful, but I think your senses are being influenced," Derek said tactfully. "Remember the Bulgarian mascot at the Quidditch World Cup final?" "You mean she's a Vila?" Ernie asked, dumbfounded. "I believe she has Vila blood," Derek said. "Vila are naturally imbued with alluring magic. I can feel an aura around her, similar to the Vila dancing at the World Cup. Clearly, this Beauxbatons girl inherited part of that gift." Justin and Ernie looked somewhat crestfallen. The second course arrived, bringing sweets none of them had ever seen. Derek happily indulged in a plate of soft, creamy milk pudding, which the others hesitated to touch. As the golden plates were cleared and polished once more, Dumbledore rose again. A tense excitement spread through the hall. Many eyes were fixed on him, eager and attentive. "The moment has finally arrived," Dumbledore said, smiling at the upturned faces. "The Triwizard Tournament is about to begin. I will first offer a few words of explanation, and then we shall bring forth the goblet." Derek noticed that the 2 empty seats had quietly been filled. Bartemius Crouch and Ludo Bagman, whom he had glimpsed once at the Quidditch World Cup, now sat on the faculty bench. "I will now outline this year's schedule of activities, but first allow me to introduce 2 guests, as some of you may not know them. This is Mr. Bartemius Crouch, head of the Department of International Magical Cooperation at the Ministry of Magic, and this is Mr. Ludo Bagman, head of the Department of Magical Games and Sports." Bagman received far louder applause than Crouch, perhaps because he had a bit of fame as a Quidditch beater, or perhaps simply because he was more visually appealing. As the students applauded, Bagman waved cheerfully, while Crouch neither smiled nor waved, appearing stiff and formal. "In recent months, Mr. Bagman and Mr. Crouch have tirelessly worked to organize the Triwizard Tournament," Dumbledore continued. "They will join me, Professor Karkaroff, and Madame Maxim to form the judging panel, evaluating the efforts of the champions." At the mention of champions, the students seemed to sit up straighter, their attention fully captured. Dumbledore noticed their excitement and smiled faintly. "Mr. Filch, please bring the box forward." Filch approached from the corner, carrying a jewel-inlaid wooden box that looked quite old. "The specific challenges for this year's champions have been carefully reviewed by Mr. Crouch and Mr. Bagman," Dumbledore said as Filch carefully placed the box on the desk before him. "There will be 3 tasks spread throughout the school year. They will test the champions in various ways: their magical skill, courage, reasoning ability, and, of course, their capacity to face danger." At the last words, the great hall fell completely silent. "As you all know, there will be 3 champions, each representing 1 school. We will score them based on the quality of their performance in each task, and after all 3 tasks, the champion with the highest total score will win the Triwizard Cup. The selector of champions is impartial. It is the Goblet of Fire." At this, Dumbledore tapped his wand 3 times on the lid of the box. Slowly, it creaked open. Reaching in, he pulled out a large, roughly carved wooden goblet. The cup itself was plain, but inside danced blue and white flames. Dumbledore closed the box and placed the goblet atop the lid so that everyone in the hall could clearly see it. "Any student wishing to compete must write their name and school on a piece of parchment and drop it into this goblet," Dumbledore said. "Those wishing to enter have 24 hours to do so. Tomorrow evening on Halloween, the goblet will select the 3 students it deems most capable of representing their schools. Tonight, the goblet will be in the entrance hall, accessible to all who wish to participate." "To prevent younger students from succumbing to temptation," Dumbledore continued, "I will draw an age boundary around the goblet. No one under 17 may cross it. Finally, I must remind each prospective champion that this tournament is no trivial matter. Once chosen by the goblet, a champion must see the competition through to the end. Submitting your name into the goblet forms a magical contract that cannot be broken. Think carefully and ensure you are fully committed before placing your name inside. That will be all for tonight. Good evening. Only an age boundary in the goblet? Ernie's eyes sparkled, rekindling his desire to be a champion. No teacher checking if we're old enough. Maybe we can trick the age line and throw our names in anyway. Then we might become champions. You're welcome to try, Ernie, Derek said, unable to resist a teasing tone. You have a full 24 hours, but I doubt you'll even figure out what magic Dumbledore used. The age line, though. How else could there be magic? Ernie asked, confused. Oh, there are plenty of magical safeguards, Derek said. The simplest is just the age line itself, which could be fooled by age-enhancing potions. A bit harder is detecting traces of magic in your body, which potions can't fake. It only disappears when you're truly 17. Harder still, mind-detecting spells can read whether you truly believe you're 17. And the ultimate challenge would be linking the line to the enrollment list. Any underage student not on the list is automatically blocked. Of course, the Durmstrang and Beauxbaton students are all of age and already on the list, so the boundary won't hinder them at all. Hufflepuff gains 10 points, Mr. Greengrass, a cheerful voice said from behind him, for your breadth of knowledge and quick thinking. Derek jumped, realizing a small crowd of students had gathered around, listening to his analysis of the age boundary. Turning, he saw several professors behind them. Dumbledore smiled broadly, while Professor McGonagall scowled, as if he had just submitted the very first failing Transfiguration essay in history. I see that even underage students are engaging with the tournament and still learning. That is excellent, Dumbledore said happily. As for the true nature of the age boundary, everyone leaned forward, ears perked. McGonagall's eyebrows nearly disappeared into her hairline. Albus, she said sharply, behave. Ah, yes. I'm afraid I must keep that a secret. Dumbledore shook his head, and a collective sigh ran through the crowd. After the selection, any interested students may come to my office to explore the intricacies of magic together. Now off to bed. Chapter 45. The Champions. The next day was Saturday, and usually students didn't get up for breakfast until late, but this morning, more than a few were unusually early. As Derek, Ernie, and Justin descended into the entrance hall, they saw a crowd of over 20 students gathered around something in the center, including Harry, Ron, and Hermione, who were all scrutinizing the goblet of fire. The cup rested on a stool in the middle of the hall, the same one where the Sorting Hat usually sat. A thin golden line had been drawn on the floor around it, each side about 10 inches long, enclosing the cup perfectly. All the Durmstrang representatives have put their names in, a third-year girl told Ron. But I haven't seen anyone from Hogwarts enter yet. Someone probably slipped their name in while we were asleep last night, Harry said. I would have done the same. Don't want anyone watching. Imagine if the cup spit your name out all crumpled. How humiliating. I doubt it's that cruel, Harry, Derek said. The goblet only spits out the names of the champions, but someone's about to try something that's genuinely embarrassing. What? Harry turned to see the excited Weasley twins and Lee Jordan approaching, faces lit with realization. You ready? Harry asked. Done. Just swallowed it, Fred said proudly. Now we have a shot at being champions without looking foolish. What? Ron asked. Age-increasing potion, you dolt, Fred explained. Just a drop each, George added, rubbing his hands with glee. We only need to age a few more months. If any of us wins, the 1,000 galleons will be split 3 ways, Lee Jordan said, beaming. I don't think this is going to work, Hermione cautioned. I'm sure Dumbledore considered this. I'm looking forward to the results, Derek said. Let's see how the age line punishes you. Making it sound like we've already failed, Fred said, eyes exaggeratedly wide. Once one of us becomes a champion, we'll consider signing a photo for you, Derek. Much obliged, Derek said with a slight bow. Let's get on with it. Ready? Fred trembled with excitement, turning to the others. Then here goes. I'll go first. He stepped to the edge of the age line, wobbled on his toes for a moment, then drew a deep breath and crossed the line, every eye in the hall fixed on him. For an instant, everyone except Derek thought he had succeeded. George certainly did, shouting triumphantly and leaping forward after Fred, until a hissing sound rang out. The twins were thrown outside the golden boundary, crashing heavily 10 feet away. With a loud pop, both sprouted identical long white beards. The hall erupted in laughter, even the twins themselves chuckling at each other as they got to their feet. "I did warn you," a deep, amused voice said. Everyone turned to see Professor Dumbledore emerging from the great hall. He examined Fred and George, eyes twinkling. "I suggest you both pay Madame Pomfrey a visit. She's already tending Miss Fawcett from Ravenclaw and Mr. Summers from Hufflepuff, who also wanted to increase their age slightly. But I must say, their beards aren't nearly as impressive as yours." Fred and George headed to the hospital wing, Lee Jordan accompanying them, still laughing uncontrollably. Harry, Ron, and Hermione giggled too, heading into the great hall for breakfast. Derek, Ernie, and Justin stayed behind in the hall, waiting for Cedric to enter his name. After a while, Cedric appeared, surrounded by a group of sixth-year students. 2 of them helped push him forward into the age line. Watching Cedric step safely across the line, someone whistled in admiration. "Come on, Cedric, put your name in." Cedric smiled brightly, took 2 steps back, faced the goblet, pulled a slip of paper from his robe, and dropped it in. The hall erupted in cheers. Ernie and Justin whooped. Derek let out a quiet sigh and then applauded. "Cedric is definitely going to be a champion," Ernie declared confidently. Derek said nothing, while Justin stared at the goblet for several seconds, captivated. "I don't want to do anything school-related today," Justin said. "I just want time to fly so I can see who becomes a champion." "How about we spend the day on the Quidditch pitch?" Ernie suggested. "Form teams however we like, a few people per side. Derek, can I borrow the firebolt for a while?" "Of course," Derek shrugged, happy to push thoughts of the Triwizard Tournament aside. "Let's go together." By the time the Halloween feast began, the goblet had been moved in front of Dumbledore's chair at the staff table. Every seat was filled, and students whispered about which Hogwarts classmates over 17 might enter the tournament, comparing strengths and silently praying their house would produce a champion. "Someone said Warrington got up early to enter his name," Hannah told them. "That big Slytherin guy." "Just him?" Zacharias scoffed. "He looks like a sloth. No match for Cedric." "And from Gryffindor, Angelina Johnson, and from Ravenclaw, Roger Davies," Hannah continued. "Both are exceptional Quidditch players." "I hope the goblet pays more attention to their skills on the field," Ernie said. "After all, we won the Quidditch Cup last term, and there's no doubt Cedric is the best seeker." The Halloween feast seemed to drag on longer than usual. Perhaps because there had been back-to-back feasts, no one seemed as eager for the lavish dishes as they normally were. In the Great Hall, students craned their necks, faces etched with impatience. They shifted in their seats, occasionally rising to see if Dumbledore had finished eating, everyone eager to know who would be chosen as a champion. Finally, the golden plates returned to their spotless state, and the hall erupted into the loudest murmur yet. At that moment, Dumbledore stood, and silence fell immediately. Professor Karkaroff and Madame Maxim looked just as tense and expectant as the students. "All right, the goblet is about to make its decision," Dumbledore said, walking to the goblet of fire. "It should take about a minute. Once the names are announced, I hope they will proceed to the adjoining room." He gestured to the door behind the staff table, where the champions will receive their initial guidance. He raised his wand and gave a broad sweep. Instantly, all the candles, except those in the pumpkin lanterns, were extinguished, plunging the hall into dimness. The goblet blazed with brilliant blue and white flames. Everyone held their breath, eyes fixed, waiting. The flames in the goblet suddenly turned red, sparks flying outward with sharp crackles. Then a tongue of fire shot upward, and a scorched piece of parchment flew out. Dumbledore caught it, holding it high to read the name in the glow of the flames. The fire returned to its blue and white hue. "The champion from Durmstrang," he announced clearly and firmly, "is Viktor Krum." Applause and cheers swept the hall. Krum rose from the Slytherin table, looking slightly dazed, and made his way toward the staff table, then into the adjoining room. "Excellent, Viktor Krum," Karkaroff's voice boomed across the hall. "I always knew you were destined to be a champion." The applause and chatter gradually subsided. Attention turned back to the goblet. Seconds later, the flames turned red again. A second parchment shot out toward the ceiling, and Dumbledore caught it with steady hands. "The champion from Beauxbaton," he said, "is Fleur Delacour." Derek watched as the graceful silver-haired beauty rose, flicked her hair, and glided lightly between the Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff tables. The scene from last night repeated itself. Many boys stared dumbly, hands red from clapping without even realizing it. Once Fleur Delacour also entered the adjoining room, the hall fell silent again, this time with an almost tangible excitement. Next would be the announcement of Hogwarts champion. The goblet's flames turned red once more. Sparks flew, tongues of fire shot upward, and Dumbledore drew the third parchment from the blaze, reading the name carefully. But he froze. Surprise flashed across his face. The hall, full of eager anticipation, waited for Hogwarts champion to be named, yet Dumbledore seemed lost in thought. Only when Professor McGonagall cleared her throat did he refocus, eyes gleaming with curiosity. "The champion from Hogwarts," he announced loudly, "is Derek Greengrass." Author's note: Chapter 46, 4 Champions. Derek sat frozen at the table, doubting his ears. Just moments ago he had hoped Cedric would not be chosen by the goblet to keep him away from the hidden dangers of the tournament. Now the goblet had spit out his own name. Wait, I didn't even enter myself. The great hall was silent. No applause, no cheering. Many were stunned by the unfamiliar name. Whispers spread as students tried to discover who Derek Greengrass was. Slowly, all eyes turned toward him. Professor Sprout rose in surprise and hurried down from the staff table to whisper into Dumbledore's ear. Dumbledore listened, shaking his head slightly. "The champion from Hogwarts," he repeated loudly, "is Derek Greengrass. Mr. Greengrass, please come forward." Justin, mouth agape, nudged Derek. "Go on, Derek. Looks like you're a champion." Susan glanced between Dumbledore and him, hesitated, then raised her hands and started clapping. As if a switch had been flipped, applause and cheers erupted from the Hufflepuff table. "It's real, mate." Ernie and the others pulled him up from his chair, shouting, "You're a champion now." Derek let their momentum help him stand, moving blankly down the aisle between the Gryffindor and Hufflepuff tables. He saw Harry, Hermione, and Ron staring at him, completely stunned. In fact, most of the students outside of Hufflepuff, just like the three of them, were in a daze. They neither applauded nor cheered, as if Dumbledore had just announced a fake name. The rest directed boos toward the Hufflepuff table, and faint murmurs of cheating and rule-breaking came from the Slytherin side. Feeling unsteady underfoot, Derek finally made his way to Dumbledore. "Congratulations, Derek, our champion. Step through that door," Dumbledore said, looking down at him with a faint smile. Derek left the hall and entered the small door, finding himself in a modest room. Wizarding portraits hung along both walls, and across from him the fireplace blazed warmly. Victor Krum and Fleur Delacour were seated by the hearth. Hearing footsteps, they both turned to assess him. "Hello, Hogwarts champion," Fleur said, rising from her armchair and tossing her cascade of silver hair. "You must already know our names, but we still don't know yours. May I ask who you are?" Derek clasped his hands behind his back, pinching himself lightly and taking a steadying breath. "Derek Greedo, Miss Delacour," he said, nodding politely to Fleur, while mentally planning how he might suggest to Dumbledore that he withdraw from the competition. "It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Krum. You were incredible at the World Cup." Krum slouched in his armchair, lazily nodding his head toward him. "You're from Hufflepuff, right?" Fleur's eyes scanned the emblem on his collar. "Are you in 6th or 7th year?" Her words were cut off as the door swung open. Harry Potter stepped in, looking bewildered and unsure of himself. "What's going on?" Fleur asked. "Are they calling us back to the hall?" A flurry of footsteps followed, and Ludo Bagman entered. He grabbed Harry by the arm and pulled him forward. "This is extraordinary. Completely unprecedented," Bagman muttered, gripping Harry's arm and whispering excitedly. "Absolutely extraordinary, gentlemen and lady," he said to the three of them by the hearth. "Allow me to introduce, though it seems impossible, the 4th champion of the Triwizard Tournament." Krum straightened in his chair, scrutinizing Harry with a dark, haughty glare. Fleur tossed her hair and smiled sweetly. "Oh, what a funny joke, Mr. Bagman." "A joke?" Bagman repeated, confused. No, absolutely not. Harry's name just came out of the Goblet of Fire." Crumb's thick brows furrowed slightly, and Fleur's expression turned serious. "But this is clearly a mistake," she said haughtily to Bagman. "He can't compete. He's too young." Derek twitched at the corner of his mouth. His own age was clearly insufficient as well. "Yes, it is indeed surprising," Bagman said, rubbing his smooth chin with a cheerful smile. "But you know, the age restriction was only introduced this year as an extra safety measure. Since his name emerged from the goblet, well, I think now that it has happened, there's no turning back. And Mr. Greedo is in the same year as Harry. Truly unusual. Hogwarts has 2 champions, both underage." Derek's heart leapt. Fleur and Crumb's faces had just registered surprise when the door behind them opened again. A crowd poured in. Professor Dumbledore, Mr. Crouch, Professor Karkaroff, Madame Maxime, Professor McGonagall, Professor Sprout, and Professor Snape. "Madame Maxime!" Fleur immediately said, striding toward the towering headmistress. "They say these 2 boys are also entering the tournament." Madame Maxime straightened her massive frame, her elegant head brushing a candle-lit chandelier, her black satin dress rising and falling with her breath. "What does this mean, Dumbledore?" she asked arrogantly. "I'd like to know as well," Karkaroff said, his face wearing a cold, icy smile, his blue eyes like shards of ice. "Compensate for insufficient age with numbers? I don't recall anyone telling me that a host school can have 2 champions. Have I not read the rules carefully enough?" He gave a short, unpleasant laugh. "That's impossible," Madame Maxime said, placing her opulent opal-encrusted hands on Fleur's shoulders. "Whether Hogwarts' champions meet the age requirement is your matter, but you cannot have 2 champions. It's completely unfair. In our understanding, your age line should exclude underage competitors, Dumbledore," Karkaroff said, his gaze icy. "Yet here stand 2 underage individuals. I strongly suspect you did not properly enforce the magic, intending instead to give Hogwarts a numerical advantage." "This is the fault of Potter and Greedo, Karkaroff," Snape said quietly, his dark eyes flashing with hostility. "Do not blame Dumbledore. They insisted on violating the rules. Greedo, this transfer from America, clearly refuses to be ordinary. And Potter has been breaking rules since his arrival." "Thank you, Severus," Dumbledore said firmly, and Snape fell silent, though his eyes still gleamed with malice. After a moment, Derek finally collected his thoughts. "Ahem, esteemed heads and professors," he cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "Please allow me a statement." Without waiting for consent, he continued. "First, Professors Karkaroff and Madame Maxime, I am sure you are extremely dissatisfied with this situation." He bowed lightly to them. "I sincerely respect your commitment to the rules. Subjectively, I have no desire to become a champion. Whether it be for 1,000 galleons or eternal glory, I do not care. I can prove my innocence by any method that does not harm my body. I did not put my name into the goblet, nor did I attempt in any way to enter the Triwizard Tournament. Therefore, if allowed," he looked at Dumbledore, "I voluntarily relinquish my champion status, allowing Harry to be Hogwarts' sole champion. This resolves all disputes. May I?" "Silence, Greedo," Snape said coldly. "We are not playing children's games. Do not contaminate us with your childish logic." "Perhaps you did not understand, Professor Snape. I am willing to use any method that does not harm me to prove my innocence. As Potions Master, you surely have Veritaserum. I can take it now, under everyone's witness, and submit to questioning." "Ha, now I understand," Karkaroff said, pointing a finger at his nose. "So, after being chosen as a champion, you're trying to play innocent here? Veritaserum can't be used on minors. And you, Dumbledore," he spat harshly, "bringing an American to interfere in the Triwizard Tournament. I'll be filing a complaint with the International Confederation of Wizards, Hogwarts conspiring with the American magical authorities to disrupt the European magical community." "Greengrass, this is not the time to speak. Stop causing trouble," McGonagall snapped sharply. "Albus, say something." Dumbledore lowered his gaze to Harry. "Did you put your name into the Goblet of Fire, Harry?" he asked calmly. "No," Harry said. "If Derek wants to test me with Veritaserum, I'll take it. I've done nothing." "Did you ask any older students to put your name in?" Dumbledore continued. "No," Harry said emphatically, clearly sensing the mistrust around him. "And you, Derek?" Dumbledore turned to him. "Are your answers to both questions the same as Harry's?" "Yes, Professor Dumbledore," Derek replied succinctly under McGonagall's intense gaze. "They must be lying. Madame Maxim exclaimed, and Karkaroff nodded vigorously. They couldn't have crossed the age line, McGonagall said sternly. I believe we all agree on that. Of course, that's possible, Dumbledore said politely. That's absolutely impossible, Professor Sprout said, placing a firm hand on Derek's shoulder. I believe in Greengrass the same way McGonagall trusts Potter and the way everyone trusts Albus's magical skill. The age line didn't fail. Neither of them asked older students to submit their names. Others should trust these facts too. She shot a glare at Snape, clearly angry. I'd like to add one thing, just one, Derek said, feeling the sudden weight on his shoulders. The Goblet selects the most outstanding students, which means character is considered. Asking older students to submit a name involves deceit. The Goblet would never approve, and since we couldn't bypass Professor Dumbledore's age line, the names were definitely not submitted by either of us. Mr. Crouch, Mr. Bagman, Karkaroff said smoothly, as impartial judges, you must agree this is highly inappropriate, right? We must follow the rules. The rules clearly state that anyone whose name emerges from the Goblet must compete in the tournament, Crouch said stiffly. Bagman knows the rules inside out, Bagman added with a smile, seeming satisfied the matter was settled. I insist my students re-enter the tournament, Karkaroff said, frowning. Set up the Goblet again. Each school should produce 2 champions for fairness. That won't work, Karkaroff, Bagman said. The Goblet has just gone out. It won't ignite again until the next tournament. Durmstrang won't participate next year, Karkaroff shouted. After so many meetings, negotiations, and agreements, this still happens. I want to leave right now. Empty threats, Karkaroff, Moody growled, leaning on his staff. Both must compete. They are bound by magical contract. But it benefits Hogwarts, Karkaroff shrieked. Giving Hogwarts 2 chances increases your odds of winning the Triwizard Cup over Durmstrang and Beauxbatons. Ridiculous reasoning, Karkaroff, Moody sneered. Don't you see these 2 children are in danger? They're underage, not strong enough to handle the tasks, and could even die. Especially Potter. Someone surely wants him dead, like the person you'll never forget. Alastor, Dumbledore warned sharply. Moody paused, still glaring at Karkaroff, whose hands trembled and face burned like coals. I still don't understand, Professor Sprout said, how 2 underage champions emerged despite the age line and Goblet safeguards. Someone must be scheming. I have an idea, Moody said hoarsely. A highly skilled wizard must have cast a powerful Confundus or Trust spell on the Goblet, making it believe a 4th school exists, with Potter as its sole representative. But that explains only one, Madame Maxim pressed. If Dumbledore didn't err, and neither of them lied, how was the other done? If I were that person, I'd put an automatic correction charm on the Goblet's rim. Any Hogwarts student submitting a name would have it transformed into Derek Greengrass. It would have no other choice, Moody said. Madame Maxim shook her head, clearly unimpressed. How this happened, we don't know, Dumbledore said to everyone. We can only accept it. Derek and Harry were chosen. They must follow the rules. But Dumbledore, my dear Madame Maxim, if you have another solution, I am willing to listen, Dumbledore said quietly. He looked at her, but she said nothing, only glaring. Karkaroff remained silent, face darkened. All right, let's proceed, Bagman said cheerfully, now the happiest in the room. Time to guide our champions. Bart, shall you start? Wait, Derek raised a hand. Let me make it clear, I did not volunteer. I never put my name in the Goblet. Can I withdraw from the tournament? Everyone in the room stared at him. Fleur and Krum looked especially annoyed, while Harry's eyes reflected admiration. He shrugged calmly. The Triwizard Tournament is extremely dangerous, and clearly someone manipulated it, right? I'm a coward at heart. Neither gold nor glory is worth my life. I formally request to withdraw. I'm afraid not, Derek. Dumbledore's deep blue eyes fixed on him. The moment your name emerged from the Goblet, you entered into a binding magical contract. You must compete. At the very least, until you find a way to break the contract, you must participate. All right, I'll do my best to find a way, Derek said calmly. Barty? Bagman reminded him. Yes, guidance, right? The first task. Mr. Crouch stepped out of the shadows, looking gaunt and frail, somewhat reminiscent of last semester's young Sirius. The first task is meant to test your courage, so we won't be telling you what it is. The ability to face the unknown is an essential quality for a wizard, extremely important. The first task will take place on November 24th, performed before your fellow students and the judging panel. During the task, champions may request or accept any assistance from their professors. When facing the first challenge, the only weapon a champion wields is their wand. Only after the first task concludes will they learn any details about the second task. Because the competition demands so much and lasts so long, champions will be excused from end-of-year exams. Wow, that's one of the only two pieces of good news among all today's bad news, Derek muttered under his breath. After the briefing, Derek and Harry walked through the empty great hall. The candle flames had dwindled low, causing the pumpkin lantern's toothy grins to flicker in a strange, eerie manner. Derek glanced back at Harry and saw him still dazed, eyes clouded, shuffling along half awake. "Harry," Derek said after a pause, "you need to be careful." "Oh, I know the tasks will be difficult. Thanks for the warning," Harry replied. "I'm not talking about the tasks. Dumbledore wouldn't let you face mortal danger at Hogwarts," Derek said. They had reached the entrance hall, and the goblet of fire was gone, leaving only the torchlight. "I mean the person who put your name in the goblet." "You believe me? That I didn't enter my name?" Harry looked up at him. "Do you not believe I didn't put your name in the goblet?" Derek countered, standing firm. "I," Harry scraped his foot along the floor. "I just thought you understood the age line well. Professor Dumbledore seemed to give weight to your speculation yesterday." "I didn't," Derek said calmly. "I had no intention of entering the Triwizard Tournament, nor did I put any names into the goblet. But now saying that is meaningless. Against so many older students, somehow two underage champions emerged. They must think we possess some mysterious magic that bypassed the age restriction and the goblet. Yeah, aside from Hermione and Ron, no one would believe me," Harry said, frustrated. "I may have daydreamed about it once, but that was just fantasies. I never seriously considered entering the competition." "Starting tonight, you need to consider it," Derek said. "Ignore the speculations of outsiders. Focus on the tasks, on improving your magic, and on discovering who's behind this, to ensure your own safety." "The person who put our names in the goblet," Harry said slowly, "did they want to embarrass us? Or as Moody said, did they want to use the tournament to kill me?" "I lean toward the latter," Derek said, "though I have no proof. You have to realize someone is scheming behind the scenes, and we've been unwillingly dragged in as their pawns. In this competition, Harry, we are not opponents, not each other's adversaries. We should team up to protect ourselves. Do you agree?" He extended his right hand to Harry. Harry hesitated visibly. "That doesn't seem fair to Beauxbatons or Durmstrang," he said, "and are we violating the rules by doing this?" Derek smiled wryly. "I didn't say we'd team up against Krum or Delacour, nor that we'd work together to win the Triwizard Cup. I mean, the mastermind behind this won't simply toss us into the competition and walk away. They will have a follow-up plan, manipulating events subtly to achieve their goal. I want you to notice the unusual events this term, people or situations. We share what we find, agreed?" "Of course, no problem," Harry exhaled in relief, shaking Derek's hand. "Then see you at Transfiguration practice?" "All right," Derek said. "Good night, Harry." He turned toward a door on the right side of the stairs, entering the stone corridor, walking down the long passage, his mind finally easing slightly. As he feared, Harry Potter had been drawn into the Triwizard Tournament, but as always the healer could not heal himself. He could not foresee his own fate. What did it mean to be a champion? Could it be that in some conspiracy surrounding Harry Potter, he himself had a role to play? Was it because he had rescued Sirius Black last year? Or he would need to accelerate his mental barrier practice. Lost in thought, he reached the entrance to the common room. Before he could recall the proper rhythm for knocking, the door burst open, and an ear-splitting cheer hit him. Then a dozen hands grabbed him, pulling him to the Hufflepuff common room, facing the entire Hufflepuff house. Screaming, cheering, whistling, it was chaos. "I knew you could crack Dumbledore's age line," Ernie shouted. "You're the best one. You actually didn't grow a beard like Summers and still made it? Amazing," Justin called out. "Guys, can I just have a moment?" Derek said. "I really just want to." "You'll take down Potter just like last Quidditch match, Derek," Gerald shouted, Hufflepuff's chaser. You're Hogwarts' true champion. Potter's name came out fourth. He's a fake. We grabbed some food and drinks from the kitchen. The house elves offered us some mead. Here, have some steak, Derek. You didn't eat much at the feast. You must be starving. Thanks, but I'm not hungry. Please don't. No one would listen. No one cared that he just wanted to be left alone, or that he had no joy in this celebration. Caravalad, another chaser, somehow found a Hufflepuff flag and insisted on draping it over Derek like a cloak. He finally had to crouch on the floor, cast an invisibility charm on himself, and make his escape. Sitting cross-legged in a corner of the common room, Derek opened a bottle of butterbeer and drank half of it in one gulp. He watched the celebration continue without him, painstakingly unraveling the yellow and black flag tied around him. Nice invisibility charm, Derek, a voice said nearby, startling him. You've always been so talented with magic. He turned to see Cedric sitting quietly in a worn armchair, a book open on his lap, completely out of sync with the raucous atmosphere. Cedric? How? Derek stammered, heart sinking, scanning the common room. A few sixth-year friends of Cedric had also stayed on the sidelines, watching coldly. I want to say, I didn't put my name. I heard your analysis last night. You really understand the age line, Cedric said with a faint smile. Congratulations on finding a loophole in Dumbledore's magic, and congratulations on becoming Hogwarts' champion. I hope you perform well. Derek began to understand. Listen, he said, I never wanted to enter the Triwizard Tournament. I didn't put my name in. Someone manipulated the goblet, and Harry also became a champion. There's foul play in the competition, just like I told you before. He shut his mouth abruptly. Earlier, he had been trying to persuade Cedric not to submit his name, and now he himself had been chosen. Cedric seemed to realize the same thing. His smile vanished entirely. I swear, every word I said to you about the tournament was honest. I didn't want you to enter. I didn't enter myself. Someone is manipulating this from behind the scenes. I am truly sorry. Cedric raised a hand to stop him. The age line was an additional safeguard added this year. As an exceptional underage wizard, Derek, you are qualified to compete, he said quietly. And once a name is submitted into the goblet, we compete fairly. If the goblet had a mind of its own, it would see you as stronger than me. You don't need to apologize. I have nothing to complain about. Listen, this is a conspiracy. Time will prove everything I've said, Derek said deliberately. The competition is far from what you imagine. 2 underage champions were selected. You trust Dumbledore, but do you think he intended for the age line to be cracked by Harry and me? But Harry Potter is Dumbledore's prize student, Cedric said skeptically. Everyone knows Dumbledore cares for him. Maybe it's because last year you saved his godfather, helped him uncover the culprit who killed his parents. He's grateful, so he suddenly covered his eyes, swallowing hard. Sorry, I lost control. You defeated me fairly. No, say what you want, Cedric, Derek said, tossing the flag aside. Let it all out, then we can talk. You'll see the many irregularities. I need your help. I need to apologize, Derek, for my reckless words just now. I made malicious assumptions about Dumbledore, Potter, and you. I am sincerely sorry, Cedric said coldly. My reason tells me you beat me fairly in the goblet. I have nothing to complain about, but reason and emotion are hard to separate. I felt envy, jealousy, loss, discomfort. I couldn't control it. Please forgive me. On a night that should belong to you as a friend, I should have celebrated with you. Instead, I brought you discomfort. Derek felt a surge of frustration. How could Cedric not understand? Weren't the 2 underage champions the biggest problem tonight? I'll say it again, I never intended to enter, never submitted my name, he said, using his mental barrier technique to lock away all disruptive emotions, speaking in a calm, detached tone. Do you trust me? Cedric's eyes met his. I trust you, Derek, he said wearily, but I really can't talk to you calmly right now. Let's stop here. I need to sort myself out. You must be tired too. Go get some rest. He walked up the stairs without looking back. Derek stood frozen in place, next to that absurdly stupid Hufflepuff banner in the corner. For a moment, his mental barriers nearly failed to contain his emotions. He wanted to shout at Cedric or create some magical chaos to disrupt the common room celebration, to vent the unease, exhaustion, and confusion swirling inside him. But in the end, he restrained himself. Hang in there, he murmured to the beer bottle, his tone flat. Hopefully, tomorrow will be better. Sunday morning, Derek was the first to wake in the dormitory, though that was usually the case. Today, he rose even earlier. Dust danced in the faint morning light streaming through the four-poster bed curtains, and his mood lightened slightly. After a solid night's sleep, his mind regained its usual calm and clarity. Last night had felt interminable, stretching every nerve taut, nearly snapping them. The dormitory was quiet, the only sound, Ernie's loud snoring. Derek drew back the curtains around his bed, quietly slipped into the washroom, and began his morning routine, all the while planning his Sunday. 10 minutes later, fully dressed, he strode into the common room with his bag and headed straight for his favorite slightly firm armchair near the extinguished fireplace. He sank into it, enjoying the soft morning light streaming through the circular window. Pulling out parchment and quill, he surveyed the room. After witnessing the previous night's chaos, he had expected a wrecked common room, but all the bottles, streamers, candy wrappers, and food scraps were gone. The faint scent of earth now filled the low-ceilinged room. The house elves had done their job impeccably. He wondered what Hermione would think knowing they'd worked all night. His gaze lingered on the corner where he had spoken with Cedric the night before, and his mood sank. It was clear. The friendship between him and Cedric had entered a frozen phase. Every warning he had given Cedric before Halloween now became a reason for Cedric's resentment and blame. For a while, Derek didn't want to think about how to salvage it. Trying to reason with someone so blinded would likely backfire. Moreover, he had grown weary of repeating, "I didn't intend to enter the Triwizard Tournament," and "I didn't put my name in the Goblet of Fire." Anyone who questioned or provoked him over it now risked a well-aimed transfiguration spell, inspired by Moody. Who I choose to befriend is my business. Who chooses to befriend me is theirs. Let it be. Derek exhaled slowly, releasing the lingering frustration. He unrolled a sheet of parchment, opened his ink bottle, dipped the quill, and hovered it an inch above the smooth, yellowed surface. He thought for 5 minutes before writing fluently. Dear Mother, I don't know if you've heard, but this year, the 3 major magical schools in Europe are hosting the Triwizard Tournament. Last night, I was chosen as Hogwarts champion, and Hogwarts also has a second champion, Harry Potter. According to this year's regulations from the 3 magical ministries, only students who are 17 or older could enter, and each school could have only 1 champion. Both rules have now been broken. I never intended to participate, and I did not put my name in the Goblet of Fire. Writing this makes my teeth grit. Yet somehow, I inexplicably became a champion. I want to withdraw from the tournament, but Professor Dumbledore said that once my name was chosen by the Goblet, I entered a magical contract and must compete. Do you have any advice? I want to find out who entered my name. He paused, considering confiding in Claire about the worries weighing on him, his memories, his wand, and suspicions about a Triwizard conspiracy. But after gazing at the grass and dandelions outside the window, he decided against it. On the first 2 matters, he hadn't planned to consult anyone. Regarding the tournament, he couldn't let Claire form a bias. He only wanted her perspective as an experienced wizard. So he dipped his quill again and wrote, I hope you and Father are doing well at work. Love, Derek. The letter was short and quick to write. When he finished, the common room remained empty, the main reason he had risen early. He wanted to get to the great hall for breakfast ahead of everyone, avoiding being gawked at like some exhibit. As expected, the hall was deserted. No teachers had arrived. He grabbed a chair at the Hufflepuff table, nodded to a fellow student who didn't know him but smiled, and ignored the scrutinizing glances from Ravenclaw. He piled a plate with salted meat and eggs. While deciding between milk and pumpkin juice, someone sat opposite and reached for the pumpkin juice. Hello, Hermione said, adding a few croissants to his plate with tongues. The salted meat is a bit strong this morning. You should have something sweet to balance it. Derek glanced at her, speared some bacon and bread, and shoved it into his mouth. Thanks for the advice, he mumbled around the food as he chewed. But there's one thing. Those croissants have only appeared on the table the last couple of days. The house elves work extra hard to welcome our guests. Aren't you going to protest that? I've already figured that out. There are better ways to show support for elf rights, Hermione said. Oh, Derek took a long gulp of milk. You're not planning on dragging me around the school today to protest with you? No. Compared to SPW, you and Harry are more important. Hermione took a sip of pumpkin juice. I guessed you'd come to the Great Hall early today, so. This morning I drew a line for myself. If anyone stupidly kept pushing the issue, I'd transfigure them, Derek said lightly. But we're friends. If you really want to know how I work the age line, I can give you a rough explanation. You didn't put your name in the goblet, Hermione said bluntly. Look at your expression walking down the corridor last night. You were genuinely shocked. And you've told me more than once what you think about the tournament, so I believe you. Derek stayed silent for a few minutes, quietly eating his breakfast. Thanks, he said suddenly after another swallow of milk. No problem, we're friends, Hermione said with a small smile. Looks like you tried to explain it to others, but failed. Cedric, Derek said succinctly, I tried to persuade him not to enter. And then you became a champion. He must suspect your motives, Hermione said, sympathy in her eyes. Yeah, I wish he'd just called me manipulative. But instead, he's half teasing, half apologizing. He's really stuck in his head, Derek said, dabbing his mouth with a napkin. I need to go to the Owlery to send letters. Thanks for supporting me. It's such a relief. Finally, someone believes me. Let's go together. You can tell me about last night, Hermione said, standing and wrapping a stack of bread in a napkin. After we finish at the Owlery, I'll deliver breakfast to Harry. He's probably just as unwilling to be watched as you are. They left the great hall, quickly navigating through the busy entrance hall and up to the third floor. On a weekend without classes, the corridors were empty. They took a longer route, strolling slowly through the castle as Derek recounted everything that had happened after he left the hall the night before. Sharing it out loud lifted a weight from him. Harry and you absolutely did not submit your names, Hermione said after he finished recounting the disputes in the small room. The question is, who did? Moody's theory makes sense. No student could pull this off. No student could deceive the goblet or bypass Dumbledore's age line. This has to be Voldemort's doing. Bet on it, Derek said firmly. Hermione shivered slightly. Just wait. Time will reveal everything. How is that possible? She asked nervously. Voldemort lost his powers, his influence, barely surviving in some distant land. Who else could it be? Derek countered. Do you really think some overzealous Harry Potter fan rigged it just to make their idol shine? Should we warn Professor Dumbledore? Hermione asked hesitantly. Bid him tell him to stay vigilant? I'd guess he's been careful ever since the Dark Mark appeared at the World Cup, Derek said. The day before school started, he visited Gringotts. On the morning of September 1st, Sirius and Lupin spoke to Harry. He probably told you all on the train. That's right, Hermione said, glancing at him shyly. Harry's scar hurt again. During the summer, he dreamed of a mysterious man and a woman planning a murder. And then, Sirius informed Dumbledore, but he just said the scar hurting was a warning. He told Harry to come directly to him if it happened again. Not much substance there, Derek remarked. This isn't the first time Harry's scar has hurt, and he had a dream, Hermione said, a hint of sarcasm in her tone. I think dreams mean nothing. Divination homework is completely fabricated by Harry and Ron. Derek nodded as he pushed open the door to the Owlery. The sun was high, streaming silver light through the open windows, making it hard to see. Hundreds of owls perched on wooden beams. In a shadow near the ceiling, he spotted Panda. Down here, he called, waving. I have a letter for you. Panda chirped happily and landed on his shoulder. Like always, it's for Mom, Derek said, tying the letter to its leg. Deliver it to the International Magic Mail Office at the Ministry in Britain and wait for her reply. Got it? Panda nodded, nibbled his finger gently, then kicked off and took flight. What will you do if everything you said is true? Hermione asked as they walked downstairs. I'll track down whoever submitted my name. The method depends on Mom's reply, Derek said. She's the expert. She'll help me find the clues, and then I just follow them step by step. Chapter 49. Conflict. If Derek thought getting up early for breakfast would keep him from being the center of attention, he was in for a rude awakening. By Monday, the corridors were no longer empty. Wherever he walked, students instinctively cleared a wide path. Younger students watched him with awe, and a few timid ones bolted at the sight of him. Older students scrutinized him with a mixture of appraisal and disdain, gathering afterward in clusters